Hello, and welcome back to our third episode of the Digital Age series. I'm Sarah O'Donnell, Director of Communications, and we're really excited you're here with us today. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about how social media affects students' emotional well-being, really talking about how they are balancing connection, comparison, and highlighting what schools and families can do to really help students maintain those healthy digital habits. To help us with that conversation today, we have Lara Nugent, school counselor from SPASH, and Trevor Newkirchen, school counselor from Ben Franklin Junior High, joining us. Thank you so much for being here.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lara, can you start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself, what you do in the district?
Yeah. So this is technically my fourth year at SPASH and my 13th year overall as a school counselor. So, yeah, things have been going well.
Thanks for being here. And Trevor, how about you?
Sure. This is my second year at Ben, 7th year as a counselor.
Awesome. Well, let's just jump right in. And I'm really curious to know kind of some things that you're noticing among students that you see in the buildings that you work in around social media and mental health.
I think what I'm seeing a lot of is Snapchat. A lot of Snapchat. I think a lot among the girls, that's like their main messaging system. It's a way for you to get connected with people without having to give out your personal number. And, you don't have to have a cell phone plan. So, there are kids, like little kids that don't have to have, cell phone plans that can use that. So a lot of people are turning to those social media apps. So in terms of mental health too, like how that's connected, I don't know about you, Trevor, but I feel like there's way more mental health issues that manifest in the junior high and middle school than in the high school, at least that I'm seeing. But I definitely know that it exists among our high schoolers. I think particularly among social isolation for a lot of our students. I think at first it's there for the purpose of connection, but it results in like a lot of social isolation because it's the purpose of it is for connection. And then I think kids get just so used to, well, I've got my friends on Snapchat. Why do I need to meet up with them? I can just, FaceTime. I don't need to meet up with my boyfriend in person and go, I can just FaceTime them from my bedroom. And then all of a sudden these kids are just, self-isolating in their bedroom. And then all of a sudden that leads to attendance problems. So it's just a downward spiral.
Yeah, I would agree. I think we have a lot of students who really struggle with dissecting the difference between, so I used to say IRL or in real life, right? And I was actually at a conference. I can't remember the name of the presenter, but she studies and does a lot with families in terms of online safety and being more aware. And so she asks, instead of saying IRL, like life is life for these kids. They were born kind of with a screen in their hands, right? And so it's online versus offline life because it's still life. It's just online versus offline. I think Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok are our biggest three of the junior highs. So in terms of social media use, they use it as a way to communicate and connect. And it's interesting because we are more connected than we ever have been, but yet we also feel very disconnected. There's a lot of science and research just talking about being physically present with somebody versus the difference of not. I mean, even looking at people who, when COVID hit and a lot of people are doing teletherapy, there are a lot of people that saw their therapist virtually but didn't feel the same as being present with them. So I think even though it's easy to whip out your phone, send that snap, scroll through TikTok or like something on Instagram, we're missing that like personal connection. It's through a screen. And unfortunately, we see a lot of 7th graders, 8th graders, and 9th graders blasting out things through social media. And I'm getting a lot of students reporting through our bullying report that there are some negative things being shared and sent. And I I applaud the students, but I have students like, I didn't give them consent to take a picture of me and post it on social media. And that's absolutely valid. And I don't think youth recognize that you do need somebody's consent before you take a picture and blast it on our social media. And we have a lot of teens who feel like their autonomy is taken away. Like, I want to be able to post what I want, not what other people post, especially if it's polarizing or damaging or, slander towards that student. In terms of mental health, I do see a lot of anxiety. I'm seeing a heightened awareness of like how they relate to peers. I see a lot of students who have very low self-confidence and self-esteem because they're scrolling through Instagram, seeing pictures of all these influencers or all these teens posting, pictures and reels, and they're getting millions of likes or millions of views, and they equate that to self-worth. So if they post something and they get 10 likes, it's really damaging to them because then they feel like they're not good enough, right? And I think the other component, kind of going off what you said, attendance, because if I don't feel connected with my people or my peers in the classroom, I'm going to stay home where I feel connected, so to speak, virtually, even though you don't have that real personal connection.
Yeah. And going off of what you said too, that was something in a sense, like our soft skills and our just being able
those
to
personal skills,
be with a person and being able to work, like even just face to face, or make a phone call or work out a problem.
Yeah.
I see a lot of that. I have a lot of students who struggle with navigating those tough conversations because they don't have a screen in front of them to protect them. Yeah. And so they feel very intimidated and scared and unsure. And it's just so interesting because I hear them talk about how active they are online. And then when they're in school, I feel like they're a completely different person. Nothing wrong with being an introvert, right? Or being more quiet, but I don't think it's an introvert by like their character traits or their personality. It's like introvert by choice because I don't know how to interact.
They don't know how to interact.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting. So when we're thinking about some of those challenges that we see for students, I'm also wondering, like, I know I've seen in my own parenting those friendships really be deepened by that online connection because they can have, I think, easier access to each other, like obviously throughout the day. And I'm wondering if there are some positive components of that connection that we're seeing, or if we really just feel that it's all really kind of hindering like some of those soft skills that you're seeing, or maybe a lack of development of those soft skills.
I think that it also can depend a lot on how you set your child up for responsible use of social media and proper use of cell phones. If you're exposing your child to a device at a very young age and you're not teaching, digital literacy, and that's taught in schools now too, thank goodness, but you're not setting boundaries and you're not talking to your child early on about safety, and you're not having conversations about relationships and friendships and all of those things and how you might not understand what the tone is in a text. So the teenager or adolescent needs to understand those things when they're having those conversations with their friend or peer in order to have those healthy conversations continue. Because if they don't know those things as they're growing older, it can turn toxic. So I think if they're set up with the proper tools early on and throughout, primary and intermediate levels, I think that it can be problematic. So those pieces are really important.
I love that idea. And maybe, Trevor, you can expand on that because it feels so much to me like skills that we're likely trying to instill in our children and students anyway, right? Like how to have those healthy conversations and relationships. Trevor, can you speak to if there, in your work, do you see some of that coaching coming through of how we manage those relationships, not just in, real life, but also in that online space?
Yeah. I have a lot to say. So social media can absolutely be positive, but unfortunately we're kind of working against the system here. A lot of social media platforms pay millions and millions of dollars for psychologists and behavior experts to get people addicted. The algorithm, right?
Yep.
You watch something on TikTok for 3 seconds and it learns you, and you just get fed that content over and over again. Even if you don't like it or interact with it, that 3 seconds of time, the algorithm picks it up. So it's a hard system to fight. So I think when you are on social media, really making sure that you're aware of the content you are engaging with, because whatever you consume, whatever you look at, will continue to be fed to you. So if you are looking at hurtful, harmful content or negative content, that's all you're going to see, and it becomes your world. And it can be positive. I mean, a personal story. So I'm a huge gamer. I've been playing video games since I was 5. And online video games kind of came out when I was about 13 years old. And I begged my mom to give me Xbox Live, and she got it. And I played games online and met some cool people. And obviously online games and just online connections were very new back then. But I made some incredible friendships. And in fact, I regularly see my 3 online friends. I mean, I was even in a wedding of a best friend that I met online. And I've known her for half my life. And she's in Georgia and I'm up here. And so we try to make it a point to meet each other. So I think there definitely can be positives, but that was a much different time. In terms of coaching, I mean, I do work with students one-on-one. It's hard because I'm not the one living at home with them and setting those boundaries or modeling appropriate behavior or setting parental locks or restrictions. And even if you do, our teens are more tech savvy than us. And I'm pretty tech savvy, but I've learned a lot. And they find ways around it, right? So I think for the coaching piece, we can only do so much in the school, but I think it does come to the adults at home and having those real conversations and talking about, what is important, what kinds of things you should be interacting with, and just setting like good social media hygiene, to use that word, I guess, of, setting time limits of, 1 or 2 hours. I was actually talking with a student today, funnily enough, about social media use. And I'd asked them to look at their screen time. And they're like, but we can't have phones in school. It's like, I know your phone is in your Chromebook pouch. So they pulled out 14 hours on TikTok last week. I'm like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's almost 2 whole working days. And so we had a good heart-to-heart about, I'm not saying you can't look at TikTok or Instagram or whatever. It's just being mindful, because you tell me you don't have time to do your homework, but you have time to watch TikTok for 14 hours. It's just interesting. So it can be positive if you seek it out, and making sure that you are not, as hard as it is, not giving in to that negative or, clickbait, if you will, content.
Yeah,
Real versus fake.
Yes.
Oh, with the advent
Real
of AI.
versus fake.
Yeah, it's so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
Oh, yeah. I'm wondering for the parents, adults that have kiddos in their lives that want to have these conversations, are there some other really good kind of places they could start? I love the idea of, hey, let's take a peek at what your screen time was last, or let's look at both of ours together, right? Like maybe in a way that feels less judgmental or attacky. Are there some other good kind of prompts or suggestions of ways we could start those conversations at home?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is not leading with fear. So don't fear monger and talk about, there's all these dangerous people. I mean, there's dangerous people everywhere, regardless if that's in the online or offline world, right? And so I think a few things. One, I think the biggest thing is modeling what you want. If you're sitting on your phone as the parent or adult at home during dinner, or if you're out to eat, or if you're watching a movie together, that's only showing our children like, hey, this is okay, this is acceptable. I'm going to scroll through whatever social media I want to scroll through, right? So I think the biggest one is modeling that behavior that you want. Second, I think having like a weekly check-in, whatever day of that is, like Sunday, like, hey, let's look at your screen time and let's talk about what's going on, and being flexible with them and compromising, and because if you take it all away, that's only going to stonewall them further into resentment and frustration. And unfortunately, even social stigma, if they're not up to date with the latest trend and everyone at school knows it and they don't, that can lead to social isolation, right? Because they don't know the newest trend. And then last, I think, is being curious as an adult at home. Like, hey, I see you're using this app. Like Discord is a big app that kids use to communicate. As a parent, like ask them, what is Discord? What's that about? What are you learning? Or, oh, I see that you were playing Roblox. What game were you, or what was the game? Because Roblox is a large game and there's games within said game, right? So I think leading with curiosity and trying to gain more information, because that shows that you care and it shows that you're interested, rather than like this kind of authority of, nope, you need to get off of it. It's dangerous. It's scary. Because it doesn't have to be.
Right.
It doesn't have to be. So I think those are some things that the adults at home, if they're concerned about their child's social media use or the polarization of it, I think would be helpful on navigating those conversations.
And I think it's really hard. Like, I am a parent of 2 young children. They're not at that age yet where we're even thinking about that. But, I've worked with families, where we've had that discussion of needing to balance out trusting your child enough that you don't need to break into their messages and read everything, but still finding that balance where you might need to ask some questions and like be really honest with each other. I mean, that all starts with honesty early on in that parent-child relationship. So if you can establish that early on and just say, hey, I'm not here to like read your diary or read, you know what I mean?
Right.
Read all of those personal messages, because they need a personal life. And that's really important. And you don't want to have to break that, but still kind of have a little balance and say, hey, I'm not going to read everything, but I do need to sort of keep an eye on things.
Make sure you're safe.
Yes.
Right. That you're.
Yes. So it's finding that balance.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more with the honesty piece. Yeah.
I like those. Those are really, really good suggestions. I think I want to close out with thinking about hopeful things, either for families who are talking or wanting to start that conversation, or students that we see managing social media, online lives really well. Where do we think that might be going?
Well, the good thing is, first of all, there's the research in psychology is booming. This is a huge hot topic in research. I mean, books are being written about it. Studies are happening. And we're starting this digital literacy and social media literacy, and we're having classes around or lessons around these types of things in elementary school and middle school, I think, too, just to start preparing our students for what this is like, even around sextortion and how dangerous that is and what the consequences of all of this is. We're trying to teach kids about the brain, about social media addiction and all of those things, to start helping them understand how to use these things appropriately. So I think we're getting better at teaching our students how to be armed with and prepared to tackle these things in a healthy way.
I think it's hard because social media, I mean, it blew up. I mean, I remember MySpace. I don't know if you had
Oh,
MySpace.
yeah.
Yes.
Way back when. And then Facebook, and then Instagram.
2005.
And then X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. I think it's happened so fast, and we just couldn't, like, in terms of I don't mean necessarily us as counselors or educators, but the world just could not keep up with how fast everything was moving. And so I think we're finally, like, we're a little behind, but I think, like you had said, we're getting there. We have research. There's a ton of data out there just talking about social media use. And again, not saying that social media is this evil, awful thing. It can be used for good. It's just a matter of curating your algorithm and being aware. I think the adults at home having that open honesty. So I'm hopeful that more apps will have more like guidelines, or not necessarily restrictions, but like, government setting certain things, regulations. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah. But that can be a slippery slope. I know Europe has a lot of like age gating things, and now IDs are being used, and then that could be a potential risk if you're taking a picture of your ID, or as a kid you can circumvent that taking a picture of mom's ID. But there are apps out there that aren't as, to use your word, like toxic. Like, if parents are looking for recommendations, there's one called Be Real, It's akin to Instagram, but you don't get to decide when you post. You'll get a notification from the app saying, hey, take a picture of where you at right now. You have 5 minutes to post it. So more of that authenticity, because on Instagram, you can filter it, you can set things up, you can take 75 different takes, right? But Be Real is like, no, take a picture right here, right now, and share what's going on. And then the last thing I think is just, the current generation just being aware of this, and as they grow up and start to get into the real world, of recognizing how when they were teens, if it harmed them, start thinking about how can we make this better. I'm not saying get rid of it. I don't think that's the answer. I think the answer is education, awareness, and just working together as a team, that be it that the school, families, and kids all together, because it can be great. We just need to make sure that they're given the right tools and information to make it great.
Yeah. Thank you both so much for your insights and for joining us and just being willing to have this conversation. We sure hope that everyone will keep listening as we explore topics like social media, screen time, digital wellness, and continue the conversation about how we help kids build healthy online habits. This has been Navigating the Digital Playground, a podcast from the Stevens Point Area Public School District. Our mission is to prepare each student to be successful, both in and beyond the classroom. To explore full episode transcripts, family resources, and upcoming events, visit pointschools.net/digital playground. Thanks for listening and for partnering with us to help every student learn, connect, and thrive safely and responsibly. This podcast is meant to share ideas and resources to support families. It is not a substitute for professional advice. If you have concerns about your child's well-being or digital habits, please connect with your school counselor or a trusted professional.